And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome everyone to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Monday, September 15th, 2025. And in the weather-related headlines on this Monday across Alaska, the most notable item we have is we have a second release of the Mendenhall Lake and River underway. That Suicide Basin up there in the glacier, Mendenhall Glacier above the river and lake there, is releasing now. A flood warning has been issued. Now, this event is not going to be as big as the record event of nearly 16-foot flood crest that we had in August. It's like the third year in a row with a record crest. Well, this secondary release is going to push the river into moderate flood stage later tonight and early Tuesday morning, somewhere between 11 and 12 feet. So that's moderate flood stage, likely to occur. The current forecast as of this Monday afternoon between 2 and 6 a.m. So notable event. Take precautions if you live near the river, and certainly don't go by those elevated water levels, the flood waters, as that continues to run out here as we go through tonight and into the day tomorrow. So the flood warning is in effect through 6 p.m. Tuesday. We're going to continue to see a wet and windy pattern along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle through the weekend. Periods of moderate to occasionally heavy rainfall and strong gusty, at least gale and even lower end storm force winds. And then coming up a week from today, the autumn equinox occurs at 10:19 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time next Monday. So looking at a couple of the webcams here, Whittier is going to get in on some heavier rainfall later tonight and on Tuesday. Right now, just some low clouds, fog, maybe a little drizzle. Juneau, where the Mendenhall Glacier is releasing that water down the river from the lake into the river. We have mostly cloudy skies, 55 degrees, and additional rainfall. Some moderate to locally heavier rain will be passing through this region of the Panhandle pretty much tonight as we go on in through the weekend. So looking at, this is the only area of the state we have active weather and watch warnings, advisories going on. So we have a high wind watch in effect essentially for later Tuesday night and Wednesday, along the outer coast of the Panhandle up into the northeastern Gulf Coast that includes the area around Yakutat and also Prince of Wales Island. We could see some wind gusts southeast, sustained winds 20 to 30 miles an hour with gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour, and throw in on that some periods of moderate to locally heavy rain as we head through the midweek period. We have another low that's going to pivot up on Tuesday into Tuesday night. It's going to come up out of the North Pacific, crossing the eastern Gulf, and then head back toward the north and west. Now, we also have the flood warning that I just told you about on the Mendenhall River and around Mendenhall Lake for that glacier dam, lake dam release. We also have an aerial flood advisory for Ketchikan. As much as 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected, and as a result, that's going to cause creeks and rivers to rise. There could be flooding along those, and we also have the issue of drains getting clogged up and allowing water to back up. And then another threat is the potential here in the southern Panhandle for an isolated landslide or two, since we do have this heavier rainfall coming in with some stronger gusty winds. So keep that in mind there, especially if you're in the southern Panhandle. So here are the details on the flood warning for the Mendenhall River and lake area. We expect the crest to happen sometime between 2 and 6 a.m. early Tuesday morning, pre-dawn, and it's going to reach the crest height 11 to 12 feet, which would place it into moderate flood stage. So that's less than the record, the most recent record flood we had this past August with the release, when it was almost 16 feet. So it'll be lower than that, but still a notable event. And here's the hydrograph showing the forecasted crest as we head into early Tuesday morning. So late tonight into the pre-dawn hours of Tuesday morning is when we expect the Mendenhall River there to crest. Now, looking at the rainfall totals, that would be today through 4 a.m. Friday morning. Notice the bullseye of heavier rainfall here along the northeastern Gulf Coast, especially northern Panhandle. There are areas here that are going to easily pick up 2 to 4 inches of rain and maybe as much as 6 or so, especially where you have that enhancement from the coastal mountains, because when you get this moisture hitting those mountains and rising upward, that can enhance already what is moderate to heavy rain. We also have some heavier rainfall pulling back to the west side of Prince William Sound, including areas like around Whittier. So this is where we're going to have the wettest weather coming up here through the midweek period. Drier conditions out here and through the west. This place already had plenty of rainfall over the past 2-3 weeks and recovering from very high river and creek levels that resulted in some flooding. So here we have a low pressure system that sits here kind of along the North Pacific lower Gulf interface. There's even been a few flashes of lightning because we have colder air aloft. The lapse rate is steeper, which makes for instability, and you can get these low top showers, thunderstorms that can produce a little bit of lightning. But here comes the next round of moisture being pulled north and then northwestward around this low circulation. If we look further west, there's another low out here just to entering the lower southwest corner of the Bering Sea, and this system is also going to work its way east-southeastward. Eventually the energy from this system is going to swing back up into the Gulf for the latter half of this week. So that's what's going to keep this active weather pattern, wet, windy weather pattern along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle for the end of this week as well as into the weekend. So pretty active system, pretty active weather there. And as we take a look at the surface weather map late this Monday night into early Tuesday morning, we have the one low sitting here east of Kodiak Island, kind of sitting in the southwest corner of the Gulf. We have another low coming up from the North Pacific. There is warmer air with it. In fact, it's going to be a very mild day across the southern Panhandle come Tuesday. Some temperatures mid-upper 60s. If you could get sun, it'd be 70, but I don't know if that'll be possible. And then out to the west, here's that low down around 976 millibars, just north of the western Aleutians, Shemya, Attu, and that's going to slide toward the east-southeast, this front working its way eastward across the Aleutian chain up into the lower Alaska Peninsula. Up through the interior, a little quiet weather. There is troughiness here. There is going to be some moisture forced back along the Alcan border and up into this region. So it's going to be wet and even snowy there, but out here toward the Bering Strait, weak high pressure, keeping things a bit drier along the west side of the state. Simply when you have the low circulation here over the Gulf, northeast to north flow along the west coast tends to keep that area cooler and drier. So Tuesday, here comes the next low up out of the North Pacific. The other one just kind of wobbling, it will weaken. This front will provide additional wind and rain as it works to the north and northwest. Meanwhile, we have the low out here just north of the western Aleutians and the lower Bering with a front extending eastward with a secondary low taking shape in the eastern Aleutians and tip of the Alaska Peninsula Tuesday afternoon. And then on Wednesday, here's that low that came up out of the North Pacific into the Gulf. This front here will again provide some windy weather along with some moderate to heavy rain. Rains could be pretty hefty there along the coastal mountains there in the northeastern Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle. As I mentioned, 2 to 4 inches of rain, locally 6 inches of rain could easily accompany this system in series with what's happened today and tomorrow. And then back toward the southwest, this energy is all going to be translating to the east and then northeastward into the Gulf from along the lower Bering and Aleutian chain to just south of there as we head into the end of the weekend. You can see the consolidation by Thursday. The low that was out here kind of weakens and gets absorbed. That energy weakens, but essentially we're going to have, I could show you the mid-levels of the atmosphere. It would show a much larger low circulation over this region, and eventually that feature will shift more toward the Gulf, and it's just going to, like I said, keep the weather quite wet, windy, and active here along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle into the upcoming weekend. So temperature-wise, we do have readings below freezing in the Brooks Range, certainly higher elevations, some of the colder valleys around the Alaska Range into the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, lows generally staying above freezing elsewhere. In through the Panhandle, milder temperatures, still some 50s. The outer Panhandle, southern Panhandle, including Sitka, Craig, and Ketchikan. And then high temperatures on Tuesday afternoon in the 60s across the Panhandle, especially southern and outer areas, at least mid to upper 60s. If you could get a smidgen of sun, maybe 70, but certainly very mild temperatures. Meanwhile, back further north and west, still could hit 60 at Fairbanks, Tok, Delta Junction, even around Anchorage. So I guess relatively speaking for early fall weather, not too bad. Cooler across the north slope, generally in the 30s to near 40 for highs. We have 51 out there at St. Paul, mid 50-ish there at Dutch Harbor, False Pass, up to Cold Bay. And then for Wednesday morning, we find low temperatures generally at or above 50 in the Panhandle, 40s in South Central, and then back to the north there could be pockets of temperatures at or below freezing in through the Alaska Range, and as you get up toward the Brooks Range and certainly North Slope and up there along the Arctic coast. And Wednesday afternoon temperatures will still be around or just above 60 for the western and southern parts of the Panhandle, but again another round of rain with that front coming in along with some stronger winds. Meanwhile, readings generally in the 50s across the southern mainland, along and south of the Yukon River, with the exception of up into the colder areas along the Alaska Range or up here toward the Wrangell, St. Elias and northern parts of the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, 50s, low mid-50s, extending on along the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians and up toward the Pribilovs. So here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook that takes us to around and just past the equinox. As I mentioned, we are 1 week away, Monday, September 22nd, for the fall equinox. We're still seeing a signature for temperatures that average a bit above normal over the eastern mainland along the Alcan border and maybe northern Panhandle. Not as strong as what it was for the first half of September, but still there. Meanwhile, a little cooler temperatures expected in the southwest, say the lower Yukon, Kuskokwim region and deltas. And so again, not a super strong signature, but I would expect with kind of a continuation of lows coming into the Gulf with more of a northerly flow here along the west coast, that would tend to make it a little cooler and certainly not so much drier, because it's looking like at least the heavier precipitation events that we've seen here may let up a little bit. Precipitation for September 21st through the 25th may still be a little above normal here across the Panhandle and along the Alcan border, but overall for the rest of the state, the mainland on out through the Alaska Peninsula and into the Aleutians, we're expecting precipitation to be more typical for the third week of September.